A few days ago, I was happy, ready to get married to the love of my life. Now today I'm sitting alone, bitter, and feeling like the world has ended. Julia, 25 female, and I, 26 male, have been together for over 5 years. We dated for 3 years and were engaged for a little over 2 years. The wedding was fast approaching and we were both excited, though it was also a stressful period with all the planning involved. There was also a bit of anxiety from taking such a massive step in our lives. We tried to deal with it by being fully open with each other. I figured if we each understood what the other was going through, then we'd pull through. Unfortunately, I was wrong. While I had a bit of trouble falling asleep because of this stress, she developed the odd habit of sleeping with my best friend, Erin. At least that was the excuse she gave after I caught the two of them in the act. She'd more or less moved into my place by that point, but she still had her own apartment because the lease hadn't expired yet. She also had her home office there, so she worked from there on days when she didn't need to go into work. We planned to fully move in together after the wedding. I caught them when I went to pay her a visit in the middle of the day. I knew she'd be working from home that day, and I had half an hour free. I decided to use that time to drop by her place for a few minutes. I knew we wouldn't have much time to talk since she was busy. I'd also need to get back to work soon, but I just wanted to see her and drop off her favorite coffee for her. We both had the keys to each other's places, so I let myself in. The two of them were right there on the living room couch. The image of the two of them going at it is still burned into my brain. I won't lie, I didn't handle it well at first. Who would? I screamed at her, and I hit him. I only punched him once since he refused to fight back. Something about that pissed me off more. I wished he would give me an excuse so I could do something with my anger. I vented for a while. I don't remember everything I said at first, but it was mostly about how hurt I was that they'd both do this to me. When I calmed down a bit, they both felt it was safe to start defending themselves. They started with the excuse that it was the first time. I didn't buy that, and even if it was true, what did it matter? 1 time or 100 times, the damage was the same. I'd never be able to trust either of them ever again. When I said that, Julia seemed to realize what was coming next. Her face twisted up and she started crying. She said she didn't want to throw our future together away over a one-time mistake. Aaron was talking too. He was trying to salvage my relationship with Julia while covering his own butt at the same time. It would have been funny if I wasn't angry enough to put a hole in the wall. He backed Julia up at first and said that it was true that it was the first time, and it just happened. Then he turned around and said that he'd never do this to me normally, and she came on to him. I didn't know how to deal with both of them at the same time. I was looking at 2 betrayals at once. They both kept talking over each other, giving excuses, and my head was spinning. I told Aaron to shut up and get out before I did something I'd regret. He stopped talking immediately and left, pausing only to say, "I really am sorry, man." I didn't even look his way. I felt a little better with only Julia there. I still felt like crap, but at least my head wasn't pounding anymore. I could deal with Aaron later. Julia was crying right beside me, telling me that she didn't mean it, and she'd let the stress get to her. I couldn't believe what I heard. She was so stressed that she had sex with my best friend. I pointed out that I was stressed too. Along with the wedding preparations, I was also under a lot of pressure at work, but I never ended up on the couch with any of her friends. She couldn't say anything to that. I asked her to explain how the stress of a wedding led her to cheating on me. She took a while to stop crying so hard and then said that she'd been feeling overwhelmed and needed someone to talk to. She called Aaron and they'd been talking for a while. Eventually she broke down crying and he consoled her. According to her, this had gotten out of hand from there. I said she probably thought I was pretty stupid if she expected me to believe that. There was no way she would call Aaron first if she was feeling overwhelmed. He wasn't great at dealing with emotions. Besides, she had a best friend of her own. She was pretty close to her sister too. If she really needed emotional support, she would have gone to one of them, not to my best friend. And that's all amusing that she wouldn't come to me first, like she usually did. Nothing about her story checked out. It didn't matter either way. Even if she was telling the truth, it wouldn't change my mind. I told her that the wedding was off and she shouldn't bother coming back to my apartment that evening. I'd have her stuff packed and ready for her to pick up the next day. That set her into a storm of crying and begging, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I turned around as soon as I said that and left. She followed me some distance, but she turned back around when she realized I wasn't looking at her. She came for her things the next day. I didn't talk to her while she was there. I packed all of her stuff into boxes and left it all in the living room, 3 feet from the door. I stayed in my bedroom the whole time, with the door locked. She still came in and knocked on the bedroom door, asking to talk to me. I didn't say a word. She started apologizing again and said she would give me time to heal, as if she was being gracious. It was as if she wasn't the cause of all my pain. The days after that have been a blur. Word got around that the wedding is off, and I had to deal with a flood of calls and messages from friends and family. Most of them wanted to know what was going on or to express their sympathy. Julia called a few times, but I never answered. Eventually, she started texting me, begging me to give her a chance to make things right. Aaron tried to talk to me a few times too, but he was less persistent. He gave me my space once I made it clear that I wasn't ready to hear anything he had to say. For some reason, I feel even more betrayed by him than I do by her, so I have a lot less patience with him, and I'm glad he didn't attempt to calm me more than he did. I don't think I ever will be ready to hear him out. I didn't see a way through this for either of them. There's no way the wedding is coming back on. Julia cheated on me before we even walked down the aisle. There's no hope for that kind of marriage. It hurts, but I'm choosing to see this as a huge bullet dodged. Let's be honest, Julia didn't get stressed. She didn't make mistakes. If she ever says she wants to talk, just remind her that you already heard everything you needed to when she was talking to Aaron in stereo moans. Update. Somehow, the wedding situation didn't end there. It seems like an open and shut case, right? Julia cheated on me, and I called off the wedding. Normally, we'd all take the time to heal from our wounds and move on from there. Julia's parents had a different idea, though. They decided to make a whole thing out of it. At first, they were polite about it. Her mom texted me and said she was sorry to hear how things were going. She said she hoped we could reconcile and move past this. I assured her that the breakup was for good, and that the wedding wouldn't be happening anymore. When they realized that the wedding was off for good, the tone changed. Both of Julia's parents called me at the same time to talk about it, and I found out that her dad is the one who really had an issue with it. He spoke the most and the loudest when they called. They said that they couldn't accept my decision not to marry their daughter. I was usually polite with them, but not this time. I told him that I didn't have a say in accepting it or not. I didn't cover for Julia. I told him that I caught her cheating with my best friend. I couldn't marry her after that. He was quiet for a while. I'm sure that was the first time hearing the truth. Then he said it didn't matter. That threw me off. I thought I'd misheard him at first. He repeated himself, saying marriages are about forgiveness. I said this wasn't something like forgetting our anniversary. She cheated on me with my best friend. It wasn't the kind of thing you just moved past. He scoffed and said I was being dramatic and acting like a woman. That was when I realized I wasn't talking to a reasonable person. Her mom tried to chime in and calm things down, but he kept going. He said I'd embarrassed their family enough, and it was time for me to own up to my responsibilities. That was when he got into what this was really about. Her dad's contribution to the wedding was to cover the cost of the venue. The fee was non-refundable, which wasn't a problem before. But now the wedding was off, and Julia's dad didn't like the idea of losing a few $1,000s. That sucked, but it wasn't my problem, and I told him that. He said I was an adult and I had to understand that my actions affected other people. If I was canceling the wedding, then I had to reimburse him for the cost of the venue. I almost laughed. I asked why I should refund when it was his daughter's actions that caused the wedding to be called off. He said it didn't matter whose fault it was, since I was the one who had made the actual decision to end things. A more mature person would have worked through things, according to him. That meant it was my responsibility to make things right. I told him the only way to make things right was for me to walk away from a cheater before she ruined my life. That made him furious. When he started yelling that I was disrespecting the family, I hung up. It should have ended there, but her dad was just getting started. A few days after the call, I started getting calls from mutual acquaintances. They told me Julia's dad was telling people that I'd cheated the family out of their money. He was painting me like some kind of scam artist and leading people to believe that I actually had the money with me. To be clear, he made the payment himself. I never touched the money. That was too much for me to ignore. I don't like drama, but I won't stand for being lied about either. I made sure to tell everyone the truth about what happened. I explained that the wedding had been called off because Julia cheated and told him that her dad was trying to get me to pay him back for the venue. I emphasized that he paid the money to the venue directly and it was non-refundable. I was glad to see that everyone took my side after that. Everyone agreed that he was being unreasonable and that I didn't owe him anything. I hoped that would be the end of it, but they weren't done. I ended up hearing from both Julia and her dad this time. Julia called and said that I was being cruel. She said there was no reason for me to tell everyone about what had happened and that I could settle everything easily if I just paid her dad. She agreed that it was expensive, but she knew I could afford it. She said I could just make a sacrifice for the sake of peace. I reminded her that I'd already sacrificed a lot of time and money over her, and I wouldn't waste another cent on her. Her dad wasn't as diplomatic as she was. He started off by threatening me and saying he was going to sue me for breach of promise and emotional damages if I didn't pay him back. I actually laughed at that because I knew it was a complete joke. I told him to go ahead and file whatever he wanted. If his lawyer didn't laugh him out of his office, then I had to chat logs and screenshots to prove that he had willingly offered to pay for the venue, as well as messages from Julia proving why the wedding had been called off. Apparently, he realized how ridiculous his threat sounded because he hung up. But he still wasn't done. A few days later, I woke up to another flurry of messages. Julia's dad had gone on Facebook and written a long, dramatic rant about how young men of today have no integrity and how he'd been scammed out of his money by someone who'd done his family wrong. He didn't name me directly, but everyone knew he was talking about me. Some people asked if it was true, while a few others just sent laughing emojis or just said he was crazy. Julia got involved too, and she took her dad's side again. She said things were getting out of hand, and I could resolve everything easily by giving him the money. I flipped out on her and reminded her that this was all her fault, not mine. If she thought her dad needed to be reimbursed, then that was her responsibility as the guilty party. At this point, I realized that they weren't going to stop if I didn't hit back. I wasn't going to argue with him on Facebook comments like a teenager. I decided I would give him one last warning shot, and if he didn't back off, then I would take legal action. I made a crowdfunding campaign and titled it, "Help Julia Pay Her Dad's Non-Refundable Deposit After She Cheated." The description was a brief summary of the situation, starting with her dad volunteering to pay for the venue, and ended with his demands for me to pay him back, as well as legal threats. I didn't attach any pictures, and there were no last names there either. If you didn't know either of us personally, then there was no way to identify who the story was about. I only shared the campaign once. I posted it to my Facebook account where I knew they would see it. I'm still a bit surprised that I actually went through with it. It felt extreme, but they had taken things online first. It was even harder to believe that people actually started donating. I didn't stay up for very long. It was reported pretty quickly and taken down. I didn't care about that. I wasn't actually planning to do anything with the money. The whole point of it was to make a statement and show Julia and her dad just how ridiculous they were being. Judging from the comments and the $600 the campaign raised before it was taken down, a lot of people agreed with me. After that, I got a lawyer to send a letter threatening to sue him for harassment if he continued talking about me or harassing me about the money. The lawyer included some language that clarified that I wasn't responsible for refunding him in any way and that he was free to contest it in court if he disagreed. That finally worked because he called me only once after that. This time, he was a lot quieter and more humble. He said he wasn't trying to start any trouble and just didn't appreciate losing money on the wedding. I reminded him that I'd lost money and time on my relationship with his daughter too, and I was still recovering from what she and Aaron had done to me. I advised him to take up any issues he had with his daughter. He asked me not to make another crowdfunding campaign. I assured him I wouldn't if he stopped bothering me about the money. I reminded him that he was the one who had brought things online in the first place. I'd just been trying to move on with my life when he started all the drama. Julia's dad was humbled by the whole thing, but his daughter just got angrier. She said I'd publicly humiliated her, and she had friends asking her if everything was true. Apparently, she'd left out the bit about cheating when telling her friends and family why I canceled the wedding. Now it was out there, and she couldn't handle the backlash. Even her dad had turned against her. She told me he was telling her that he couldn't back her up anymore, and she needed to take responsibility for what she'd done. I said I was glad to hear he was finally addressing the right person. She tried to guilt trip me after that. She said I ruined her life and made it impossible for her to show her face in public. Her friends stuck with her, but she could hear them whispering or giving her judging looks when they thought she couldn't see them. She was miserable, and it was all my fault because I didn't give her a chance. I asked her if she would have given me a chance if she'd caught me in a similar position with her friend or best friend. She said it wasn't even remotely the same and called me disgusting for suggesting it. I told her that she needed to take a deep look at her hypocrisy, and I wished her the best. Then I hung up and blocked her number. That seemed to be the end of it until Aaron texted me. He said he'd been giving me some space, and now he felt like he had to come apologize for what he did. He also mentioned that Julia was spiraling, and she'd been talking about moving and getting a fresh start. I told him it wasn't my problem and that he should stop contacting me. I haven't heard from him again since then. It's been a few months since all of that died down. I blocked Aaron, Julia, and her family on everything and moved to a new apartment. Something about the change made it easier to move on from the whole mess. I won't say I'm fully over it, but I'm in a much better space than I was a few months ago. Honestly, I might even be a bit grateful that all of this happened when it did. Obviously, my fiancé cheating on me with my best friend is probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, but it was also a bit of a blessing. This was about more than canceling a wedding to me. I'd lost a lot of money on this failed engagement, as well as years of my life that I would never get back. But that was nothing compared to what could have happened if I'd caught her 5 or 10 years down the line. She didn't want forgiveness, she wanted a financial bailout. "Let's just move past this," translated to, "Please ignore the part where I blew up your relationship and embarrassed myself publicly." And when that didn't work, she called in Daddy Backup, who apparently mistook "my daughter cheated" for "you owe me thousands." Her dad acting like you owe him for canceling the wedding is rich, especially since the only thing you canceled was a lifetime subscription to his daughter's nonsense. If she really wanted to try to make peace, she could have started by not turning your best friend into her stress ball. And Julia trying to guilt trip you after everything? That's the final boss move of every manipulator who can't handle consequences. What do you think? And thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.